Hi guys. Fake photography. What is it? And is there really such a thing as fake photography? I've sometimes been critical towards landscape photographers that are, making composites, taking a photo and adding a northern lights or adding a dramatic sky to a photo that didn't have such a thing, and it's a composite. I actually don't have a problem with that. I just have a problem with them calling it landscape photography because I don't think it's that. I think it's digital art. It's more like the editing side than the actual shooting side. So it's not cheating. It's just sometimes called the wrong names. But I'm not going to talk about landscape photography. I'm going to talk about travel photography. I'm also a travel photographer, but of course all the same things apply to travel photography as landscape, but there's a little bit more because you have this human factor. There's more to it, I think, than landscape photography. Most people agree with what landscape photography is, but when I ask someone what is travel photography, I get a lot of answers, actually. And people are unclear of what it is, it seems. But for the most part, people just don't care. They're traveling and they're taking photographs. Travel photography. But is it that simple? This is not something I just started thinking about this morning. I run travel photography workshops, so I'm constantly considering how I should plan this. Should I shoot models? When should I do that? What is ethical to do and what's not? Getting into people's private space like this, like we do as travel photographers, it's a huge deal. And everybody that does this, does travel photography, should be very critical with himself and his approach. I read a blog from some French photographers, and this guy seemed really pissed off because of something. He was calling people cheaters, and he was calling their photos fake photos, and he was angry. It's actually not a bad blog, and I do agree with him on many things, but it seems like his main concerns are photo contests and people using fake photos to win contests. What he means by those fake photos should be clear in this video. And also, just if you read the blog, it's a good blog, read it. The link is in the description. I don't care too much about photo contests. I think most of them are broken and they're not fair for many reasons. First, very often they have bad judges. It's not very transparent how they judge a photo, and there is a winning formula, meaning people are shooting for contests. They are shooting to win a contest, and that can kill creativity. It's the same with social media. If you're shooting for social media, shooting for likes, it kills creativity. And the rules are often, vague. But not all competitions, I guess, but many are. I do actually think that the last thing I mentioned is the blogger's main concern. Vague or weak rules. And sometimes people categorize their photos wrong, mainly by calling some of their conceptual or staged photos travel photos. Either because they didn't know any better or to cheat in a contest. And I do agree that's a bad thing, but I do blame the contest and the judges, not necessarily the photographers. If there's a way to make a buck or to gain some prestige with bending rules or finding some loopholes in the rules. People are gonna do that. It's human nature, unfortunately. So if this blog will be used by judges to better themselves, as the blogger seems to be his intentions to help judges judge, it's great. I don't actually think so. I don't think this will help. The competitions, they need to change because human nature won't. But I disagree with the blogger that travel photography is in any danger. I don't see any danger. There are more people doing it than ever. There's a lot of great content being created, more than ever before. Not everybody is doing this for the same reason. Not everybody is a professional photographer. And for the author to call himself a real photographer and somebody else fake because he doesn't fit in his little world, it's a little harsh. Because sometimes people just don't know better, or they just don't care how photography is categorized. I don't think it's right to call people out as cheaters. Sometimes people just need to be educated. Let me just show you how I categorize my photography. When I travel for photography, I do many types of photography. I do travel photography, documentary photography, conceptual photography. I do portraits, I do a lot. And to simplify all that, I just call myself a travel photographer. It's not wrong, even if I do much more than that, but I do not try to cheat my way through life by wrongly categorizing my photos. Let me give you some examples. Travel photography. Moments from real life, little or preferably no control. I'm strictly there to observe and shoot. Sometimes I do control the environment a little bit with a smile, to get an approval, and a small sign that I just want the person to continue what he's doing and not think about me. Sometimes I get permission to stay for a while where people are doing something, working, for example. That gives me more time to think about my composition and my story. But I'm still just observing, doing very little to manipulate the environment. And here I'm offering a view into everyday life of the people I'm visiting, their cultures, their hobbies, habits, just everything I see. Telling people stories, showing them in their real environment, their reality, their life. These are real photos. Documentary photography. In documentary photography, I provide straightforward and real representations of people, places, objects, events. It's very much like photojournalists, accurate and unbiased. In every trip, I try to offer a different perspective of people's life. Often the less fortunate. I am a lucky man just because of the fact where I was born. I'm grateful and I want to give something back, so I tell people stories. For example, the story of Deb, who was brutally attacked when somebody threw acid at her. The story of Tan, who is very sick from chemical attacks during the Vietnam War, and more. I try to raise awareness, and I sometimes try to raise money for these people. I try to help through my photography. This is as real as it gets. Portrait photography. In portrait photography, there are many subcategories, but the bottom line is, it's a photo of a person or people. I'm trying to capture their character, sometimes in an environment which indicates what the people or the person does. This is most of the time very controlled, with poses, sometimes lights and props. Real photos of real people. And then we have conceptual photography. Conceptual photography is when you have an idea and you do what you need to do to get that photo. You hire a model, you use props, you just do what it takes It's a wonderful genre of photography where you both come up with the idea, produce it, and then you shoot it. Sometimes you have to hire a lot of people to execute it, like in a big budget advertising, but more often it's just a simple setting up a scene, staging what you have in mind, and shoot. For some reason, this has become very controversial, and some people, like this blogger, they're calling these fake photos. But that's not accurate. These are not fake photos, they are conceptual photos, which are sometimes called travel photos, which they are not. That is true. I think it's commonly done because most amateur photographers, they simply don't know better. They just don't care about categorizing themselves. They are simply traveling and taking photos, hence travel photography. It's not always complicated. It's not always like a criminal mastermind is deciding to cheat the system. There are of course people that are willfully calling it travel photos to fit them into a competition, and of course that's not good. However, it's not cheating unless the rules of the contest say you cannot stage photos. If the rules are clear about this and people still send in conceptual photos and call them travel photos, that's cheating. And the judges should be capable of seeing this, otherwise they are not qualified to judge a contest. For most of those photos, you really just have to use common sense, people. Come on, I mean, look at this. 3 beautiful girls in a white out-dye traditional Vietnamese dresses, walking in the woods, holding hands. This is probably a staged photo. You don't have to be a genius to see it, unless you're in heaven and you died and went to heaven. Perfectly synchronized fishermen doing a really strange thing is probably a staged photo. It's not fake, it's staged. It's conceptual photography, and it is a beautiful thing. And I think the vlogger is wrong by shaming individual photographers like he does in this blog. It doesn't reflect badly on them, it reflects badly on him. There are of course more categories in photography, people do when they travel, but I'm going with these 4 for now. When I sell my tours, these kind of tours, I call them travel photography workshops, to simplify. But if you read the itinerary, you will see that I stage shots, I hire models, I do conceptual photography. I'm not trying to hide that. It's still a travel photography tour. I'm not doing any attempt to manipulate people's mind, trying to make them think that it is different than it is. And I'm not doing false advertising. You just have to read the itinerary to see what it is. But the common denominator for this is travel photography workshop, even if there's more in the package than just plain dry travel photography. But I do think on a workshop like this, it is very important to do conceptual photography, staging photos like this, and I'm gonna tell you why. First, I do photo workshops, so I teach photography. And I find it very helpful to do that in a controlled environment. Teaching people the basics, how to work with light, how to work in low light, how to use the environment to build composition, how to shoot against the light, use smoke, use dust, and etc. There's a lot of things I cover when I set up shoots like this. It's never just something random. There's always a point. Then after, with that knowledge, I lead my group into more real-life situation where they can apply what they learned. Being on a crowded market with your group or in a situation where everything is happening really fast, it can be difficult to teach them something meaningful and to make sure that everybody gets it. So I set up shots. I stage shot. 2. Getting people warmed up. The thing is, with some people, they are just very uncomfortable doing candids or just approaching strangers and starting to shoot strangers on the street. And sometimes I can ease them in by starting simple, starting with stage photos, and slowly help them to get out of their comfort zone, helping them become more independent in real life situations, building up their confidence and their technical know-how they do need to perform in a real life situation. 3. It's often true that those stage shots are not very creative and they are somewhat repetitive, but for many that really does not matter because some of them actually do those tours because of those shots, not despite them. They want something similar because they think it's a beautiful photo and they want it. It's the same in landscape photography workshops. If I would just skip the landmark spots because they have been shot so often and because someone doesn't think it's original, well, I wouldn't be in business for long. And having said that, we do try to think of new scenarios to shoot, make little stories, learn, get beautiful photos and have fun. Fun being the key word here because, like I said, these are normally not professionals. These are tourists. These are photo tourists. They're here to learn, they're here to get beautiful photos, and they're here to have fun. Human abuse and exploiting minors are one of my biggest concerns when I travel for photography or lead photography tours. The blogger in question, he takes the long-necked ladies in Myanmar and Thailand as an example, and it is a good example. I'm gonna explain. I have never visited them on the Thailand side, but I heard really bad things. Some of them wanting to leave, returning to Myanmar because they're originally from there, but both the authorities and local businessmen are making it impossible for them to leave because of profit. They are tourist attractions, they are slaves, and that's a horrible thing. And there are many more examples like this. This is also happening in Myanmar, but I do believe that's on a smaller scale. In my case, this is where my local connection comes in. We do visit the long-necked ladies on our Myanmar tour, and after a few visits to the village we visit, I can say with some confidence that those ladies are not slaves. They're in it for the money, and I see nothing wrong with that. But I do emphasize, for you, if you're traveling, do some research before you go, or travel with somebody you trust. Human abuse is everywhere and it's not always obvious. And I would say do not travel with a Western travel agency or travel guide or a photo guide if it doesn't have a local connection, a local guide, a local help that helps him lead the tour. I would say that's the principal rule of doing this kind of work in this part of the world. Shooting children without a parent or adult who knows the child is in a very gray area. Shooting naked or semi-naked children is something many people shoot if they see that happen, but even if the parents are present, this is very controversial, and the blanket answer would be, I do not do it. But have I done it? Yes. Would I do it again? Yes. But it is not as simple as that. It depends on the situation. Sometimes it can be done and sometimes absolutely not. Like I said, it depends on the situation and your ability to read people. Also, it's not always about shooting the photo, it's more what you intend to do with this photo. Always ask yourself this question: if this was my child, Would I be okay with some stranger photographing it and publishing it on social media for likes? And we can also take this a step further and ask, is it ethical to do candids? Hiding somewhere with your long lens, shooting people that do not want any part in your projects, no matter how important you think you are. Is it okay to walk around taking photos, snapshots of people's life? They had no plans of sharing this with you or your social media followers. Every photographer that does this, they need to be able to put themselves in their subject's shoes and ask themselves, would I be okay with this? Would I be okay with this guy, this group, photographing me or my children, my life? Is that okay? And also, is it ethical for me or anybody else that does what I do to lead people to a poor country to shoot strangers and not tipping them or paying them for the services, because in the end that is what they're doing. They're providing you with the service. Is it ethical not to give them money, or is it unethical? And this is what I hear a lot from the purists, the guys that have principles. They say it's unethical to pay for a photo, because then you're not getting real life, but you're tipping them after the fact. What's your take on that? I'm not saying either way, I'm just wondering about this. And are there some places that, you can expect to be photographed, And are there other places that you should not be expected, you should expect it to be left alone from photographers, even if it's a public place. All these questions are, I'm not saying what's right or wrong here. I'm just saying you might need to think about it. You need to answer those questions for yourself. And remember, how you answer those questions reflects on you as a person. Let me end with this. If you enter a competition, be sure you know the rules of the competition, and you have to realize that there's gonna be tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of entries, and the judges they're not gonna look at them all. They're just gonna have someone pre-selecting the best photos for them. And many judges are just not qualified for the job. If people are not breaking the rules of a competition with staged images, there is nothing wrong. And instead of attacking these photographers, the bloggers should just focus on trying to change the rules of those competitions. But of course there are cheaters everywhere, trying to win contests or building a social media presence with dishonesty. Neither my video or his blog will ever change that. To change this, we just need to start talking to each other, trying to lead by example, and try to influence contests, try to influence judges to be more fair, and get help if they need with categorizing images. I don't think attacking each other or somebody attacking a photographer is going to help. It usually reflects badly on the attacker. It doesn't help his cause. Talk to each other, work things out, and find a common ground. That works for both sides. I find both sides sometimes really aggressive and very protective of their opinion and defensive of their opinion. For me, I thought about these things a lot, and I don't have like a solid conclusions, a good answer for all the questions I asked. I just try to be a human being and try to evaluate every situation as I go along, because every situation is different. What I feel like I can do here today might not apply here tomorrow. So you have to be somewhat flexible, and you need to adjust to your environment, to the people. You have to be respectful, because these are people you're photographing. These are not mountains with, these are people with feelings that they have. These are often poor people. They had a shitty day, they had a shitty life, and all of a sudden there's a photographer or a group taking photos of them, and they're like, what the fuck, dude? I did not want this. Put yourself in these shoes and work from there. I hope you took something from this. I hope this at least made you think. These are my opinions. I'm not setting rules. I'm not telling anyone what to do. I'm just telling you what I think. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.
Tình ta ngã thương, và anh có nghe khi mùa thu tới, hai chúng ta sẽ cùng chung lối, anh với em mơ mùa thu ấy.